Shalom, shalom, and shalom. This is Shamwa Allah. First of all, giving all praises to Yahweh and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. I would like to take a quick moment to break down Matthew chapter 19 and begin to kind of make a comparison of what the scriptures are really saying here. Many are taking what Yahweh Shai was breaking down in Matthew 19 and making it sound as if that someone cannot get a divorce, or that Christ himself was saying that only God allow monogamy and it will always be monogamy. That's not necessarily the case. That the text is not even talking about monogamy particularly, but that is something in which that is talked about. But regardless of whether it's monogamy or polygyny, there are some things that I want to at least kind of break down here. If you take some time with me really quick, Matthew 19, I'm going to highlight some really quick points. I'm going to read verses 1 through 9 and give some precepts on a couple things here and what's being said here. So that's the intro. Let's get into it. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these saying, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan. A great multitude followed him, and he healed them there. And the Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them. All right, so the point, or at least the law in which that they're pulling from, is from Deuteronomy chapter 24. So let's go there really quick. Let's get the sense and the understanding of it. So when a man have taken a wife and married her, and it came to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he have found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand, and send her out of his house. And when she has departed out of his house, and she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and give it in her hand, and send her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife after that she is defiled, for this is abomination before the Lord. And thou shalt not cause the land to sin, of which the Lord thy God hath given thee for an inheritance. So the gist of it, how this is written, that a man can actually give a woman an actual bill of divorcement, but they can no longer get back together once she has dealt with another man. That right there is an abomination to the Most High. So when marriages occur, when a man leaves out of the house, or a woman leaves out of the house, they separate. And once that woman begins to deal with another man, they can no longer get back together. That right there is an abomination according to the Most High, and that should never be. As we would know, there's plenty of marriages in this day and age, not so much, but plenty of marriages that actually occur where they will break up. There will be some type of relationship with the woman having with another man, and they would get back together. That right there, the Most High did not put that back together. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get back to Matthew 19 again, and let's get back where we were. So the 4th verse is where we were. And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So I'm just gonna put a pin in this really quick here. So anytime a man deals with a woman, that is his wife. So let me prove that really quick here. Let's go to Exodus chapter 22, and we're going to go to verse 16. And it says, and I'm going to highlight it really quick here. And it says, if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. So anytime that a man deals with a woman, that is his wife. The only way in which that, from a biblical perspective, a woman becomes a wife when, sex is involved, when she's penetrated. Kind of think about from the very beginning, when a woman lays down with a man for the very first time, she bleeds. That right there is a signification of a covenant. So that right there, that man that actually laid with her is truly her covenant husband. But nowadays, as we know, we don't have the correct teaching, and of a lot of our women make covenants with young men, even at that time, or even men that have no idea of what type of contract that they're being involved in. That's truly a covenant, and we're causing our women to be whores. And for our men to not take on a covenant in which that the Most High commanded every man to be. If he lays with a Israelite woman, and I'm speaking of Israel only now, he lays with an Israelite woman, he should marry her, and he should not put her away all of his days. So I'll give you another precept. Let's go to Deuteronomy 22, and it's going to go to the latter half of the verse. All right, so let's say, I'm gonna highlight this right here, and it's if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, meaning that she is not promised to anyone, and lie hold of her and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all of his days. So if a man, and at least at that time, our culture, and that's something in which that is missed when we actually read the New Testament, because we don't know a lot of the culture, because in many cases, Christianity does not encourage its believers to read the Old Testament. In many cases, what has been taught is just the Old Covenant, or the laws have been done away with. So many people spend a lot of time in the New Testament not knowing that they should take some time to understand the foundation of the scriptures first, which is actually found in the so-called Old Testament. So having that said, that this is how marriage begins. There's other precepts that I can go on here and break down, but for the sake of time, I'm trying to keep it short here. Let me see. Let me give you another one really quick. Let's go to Genesis. No. Give me 1 second. Let me get there really quick. All right, so that's Genesis 24. There we go. And 67. All right, so just really quick here, verse 66 and 67. The point is in 67. And it says, and the servant told Isaac all the things that he hath done. And Isaac brought her into his mother's Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife after he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So when Isaac took Rebekah in the tent, they had sex, and that's how she became the wife. So I needed to at least kind of set that foundation and breakdown, so we can begin to understand the cultural context on what's being said here. So let's get back to Matthew again. So Matthew chapter 19 again. And I think we were roughly about we just finished up verse 6. I'll read verse 6 again. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. So here's the sticky part. They say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He said unto them, and this is very important because, and again, when we read Deuteronomy chapter 24, there is a commandment to put someone away. Here's the sense of it. He said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffer you to put away your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so, because again, he used the precept a little bit earlier, talking about in verse 5, and he said, for this cause shall a man leave a father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and the twain should become one flesh. Where are we getting that from? Just going to show you really quick out of Genesis at the very, very beginning. Genesis chapter 2, and we are in this realm. So Genesis chapter 2, starting with 23 and 24, this is where you're going to get a lot of that. And Adam said, this is my bone and my flesh, and the flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman, because she hath taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they should become one flesh. So that's what's being said here. So now going back to Matthew, and again, I'm trying to go really quick, not to take too much time. And then if you have to, you can always pause, kind of look at some of the precepts being read here. So as we continue on, and now we're at the big part, verse 9. And it says, and I say unto you, whosoever put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away does commit adultery. So let's get the sense of what this is saying. And I say unto you, whosoever put away his wife, except it be for fornication. What is fornication? I have a pretty decent precept that kind of breaks down what this is. Because, and again, when you're reading the New Testament is largely written in Greek. So sometimes some of the words may not always correlate to the Old Testament. There's not a term for fornication, but there is a breakdown of what fornication is. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, starting with verse 1, it's giving you what fornication is. And it says, and it is reportedly, I apologize. It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as it is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. So where is that located in the law? Or where is that located into why this is called fornication? When you read Leviticus chapter 18, it will give you the breakdown. It will give us the sense of why these things are what they are. So fornication is essentially any unlawful sex act between a man and a woman, or even a man and a man, a woman and a woman. These things are outlined in Leviticus chapter 18 and also Leviticus chapter 20. So without getting too deep into it, if you're reading verses 1 through 5 will give you the sense of why these things are brought about, because these things, as the children of Israel were brought out of Egypt, and we dwelt among the Canaanites, these are some of the practices in which they were doing. The Most High wanted to separate us from those practices. So when we get down to it, verse 6, it says, none of you shall approach any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. So this is the purpose of what that is. Now, let's get to the point. And it says, in the nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover, for it is thy father's nakedness. So this right here is the fornication that the Most High is talking about. Now, when you get down to it, it would get into you can't be dealing with your sister, can't be dealing with your aunts and uncles. You can't be dealing with if you're a man, can't be dealing with another man. If you're a woman, can't be dealing with another woman. Or even when it comes to adultery, you can't be doing that also. So let's flip over. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 10. So when we get there, you're going to get the understanding. And again, this is what fornication is. Fornication, adultery. Adultery is all by itself, but it falls underneath the umbrella of fornication, the things that are considered to be unlawful. So in verse 10, it says, and the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. So this right here is the definition of what adultery is. So when you read Exodus chapter 20, and I think it's like the 14th verse, when it says, thou shalt not commit adultery, there is no definition for what adultery is until you actually get to a piece where it's talking about Leviticus. Sorry, got a little interruption there. Let me see if I can. All right, forgot to put that on. 1 second. All right, so getting back to it. So now we get an understanding or the sense of what adultery is. Adultery is actually found in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10, the definition of what that is. Many also do not know because we're living in a land of our captivity, and we're also living by Roman law. We live by man's laws and not the laws of the Most High. And we take man's laws and we supersede them over God's laws. There are things that are permissible within the scripture, but man makes it illegal for it to be done. So the point that I want to get out here, or at least to get the understanding of what adultery is, adultery, how the world or Roman law looks at adultery. Adultery is either the man or woman dealing with a partner outside of their marriage. So to make it plain, if a man was married to a woman, and let's say the man lays with another woman, that will be considered to be adultery. Or if a man and a woman together, and then a woman in that marriage lays with another man, that is considered to be adultery. But by definition, adultery is this way, is when a man deals with another man's wife. That is adultery. So it is if in a relationship, a man and a woman, and if a man lays with another woman, that is actually his wife. So, because and again, the twain became one flesh. So anytime a man actually deals with another woman, he is actually inheriting another wife. Now, when it comes to a woman can only have one husband. So by definition, if you was kind of take a look at this, and it says, in the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, that could only happen but one way. A wife is with her husband for as long as she liveth. So let's get that. Let's go to Romans, and we're going to go to chapter 7. All right, so let me highlight a couple things real quick here. And it says, Romans chapter 7, starting with verse 1. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law have dominion over a man as long as he liveth. For the woman which hath an husband is bound by the law to her husband as long as she liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loose from the law of her husband. So then if, while her husband liveth, she is married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. And so exactly what the scriptures are saying. Exactly what the scriptures are saying. If she deals with another man, she's called an adulteress. She's an adulterer because she's supposed to be with that man for all of her life. So the same thing when it comes to a man. A man is supposed to be with his woman for all of his life. Unless the only thing that's going to break that contract or that covenant is if a man lays with the wife. If a man lays with the wife, then that is no longer a marriage. That is something in which, according to the Most High, was a time in which that we used to cut that out of the land of Israel, and the adulterer and adulteress will be stoned. So that would never be so. But because we're living right now in times in which that man's laws or Romans laws supersede God's laws, and we can no longer implement what the Most High would want us to live by, then she's able to carry out and be an adulteress. And they're also adulterers, low-level scumbags dealing with other people's wives. That's what's actually running rampant. So this is what the breakdown, at least the sense of what the verse is kind of breaking down in terms of from a perspective of fornication. Now, let's get back to it really quick. Let's get back to Matthew so we can finish up the rest of the understanding of it. So, verse 9, and I say unto you, whosoever put away his wife except it be for fornication. So now we have an understanding what fornication is. It's unlawful sex acts. And that is something that's outlined in Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 20. So we should get this sense of what that is. We shouldn't carry our minds to be something else. Fornication is not what Christendom has taught us, is a single man dealing with a single woman before they actually have a marriage certificate. That's not true. That's not biblical. That's false. And again, the only way that a woman becomes a wife and a man becomes a husband is when he actually enters in a fleshly covenant with a woman. I showed you Bible verse. I didn't give you my own mind. I gave you precepts to give you clarity on what fornication, what marriage is, and what divorce is. I didn't give you any other conjecture. Okay? And it says, and shall marry another. Now, this is where the piece in which most will stumble at. And shall marry another. And if he put away his wife, or if he just went ahead and he let this wife go, and if she didn't commit this, that means that he's causing her to commit adultery. He's causing her, he's forcing her to commit adultery. Because now he has left or abandoned her. Now she is forced to be with someone else when she wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to be with her all of her days. So because you're now forcing this woman to commit adultery, the Most High is going to charge you with the charges of adultery. That's what Christ himself is saying here, is because you're doing that, you're forcing that woman to commit adultery. Now you're going to be held accountable as if that you actually committed adultery. It's not that the fact that you can't go out and, let's say in this case, you wanted to join another wife to your family. That's not adultery. You're just establishing a greater kingdom with, the wife of your first wife and then a wife of another, and if they're in the same house or in a separate house, essentially, if you're able to sustain and maintain, there is no sin in that. There is no sin in that at all. However, from a perspective, or from a Roman perspective, Roman law forbid it. And honestly, when it came down to John the Baptist, that was a huge reason why John the Baptist was even beheaded, is because he called out Herod, because he I can't remember the story, but nevertheless, the brother was dealing with Herod's ex-wife, and he wasn't supposed to be that way, and that's why John the Baptist was beheaded. So he called out a situation where there was considered to be Roman law that you cannot let a woman go and then let her go and then allow somebody else to marry her. That's allowing her to commit adultery. Or in this case, a brother cannot deal with another brother's wife while they're living. All right. It's not a levirate, marriage or situation. But this, if they're both living, your brother shouldn't be dealing, with your wife. Don't want to get too much off on the tangent. But getting back to what's being said here, it causes her to commit adultery. And whosoever married her, which is put away, does commit adultery. That's what's being said here. So I hope this provided some edification or some understanding on what the text is saying, and what Christ is trying to say to us is that we, as men of the Lord, the children of Israel, when we deal with our women, we stay with them for all of our days. I hope this provided some edification. If you have any questions, hit me up, and shalom.